Welcome to the end-to-end data analysis project where we're going to be building a product analytics dashboard where we're going to start with building a database, connecting it to a BI tool, and then essentially we're going to build a dashboard based on that workflow. So let's break everything down. So here's everything we'll need. We need to build a database, write our SQL queries, connect to a data viz tool, and create a dashboard. Now, we are going to be using some Excel documents to populate our database. We are going to use Microsoft SQL Server as our database tool and our database management system. And then we're going to use Power BI as our viz tool. So here's a typical request that you get from management for a dashboard for a product's analytics overview. Now, this is typically how things are written. This one's a little bit better formatted because it has all the KPIs and metrics that are important. So let's highlight the things that we should really be paying attention to. So we can see that the high level is very important, and this is something that you'll see indicated in dashboard requests because you don't want to get too into the weeds and have a very complicated UI with tons of metrics. Also, they want a one pager. This is probably an executive level dashboard. So that means whatever needs to be understood in that first view. So we need to have the metrics revenue by country, revenue by date and year, profit and unit sales, year over year change, revenue breakdown by discount band, and a detailed table view. And it indicates whatever else we may need. That means that you should pay attention to provide any other trends or breakdowns that you might find are important to the business. Now, a quick company overview. This is Eights of Sound. It's a leading innovator in audio technology. So they're going to be selling high-end audio tools to a variety of customer types. So we'll be able to see all that reflected in the dashboard of the type of products that they actually sell. So let's take a look at the dashboard. So this is the dashboard. As you can see, we have a few different things in this dashboard. We have of animations that will allow us to see an animated format in the dashboard and in the uh, label here. So we also have overlays where we can see these tooltips that have some graphics and sales over them. We can also change the dashboard by filtering year over year. We have the breakdowns that are indicated across all the things that were requested. We have the KPIs here year on year, and we have utilized these tooltips to give a little bit more insight into the type of customer type. This wasn't requested, but it allows the user to select. In this animation, I'll show you how to quickly add these GIFs. I didn't add all the animations because it can get quite distracting, but I'll definitely show you how to put this together. So the first thing we need to do is to build that database, which is the part of the first level of the workflow. If you haven't installed a database before, it's a pretty straightforward process. What you're going to need is to install the database and the database management system. So we are going to be using a Microsoft SQL Server, and we're going to download Microsoft SQL Server, and then we're going to get the database management system, which allows us to interact with that database here. Now, you will usually prompted after you download the database to download the management studio, but I just want to show you where those two were. So let's get started. As you see, though, there are three different options here, and these three options will allow you to download the one that you like. However, it's really easy to just get the Express edition, and this is for desktop. So I am going to just download this one. And you can see that downloaded in the corner, and it will take a few minutes, and then we're going to initialize it just by clicking its exe file. We're going to be installing SQL Server 2022, And now you're going to have these three options. I'm just going to choose basic. You can accept the terms and conditions. And then you're just going to install it. So now that you have this installed, you can see this option at the bottom where it says Install SQL Server Management Studio. So you want to click that, and it's going to take you to the page that I showed you before. And you want to click Download SQL Server Management Studio, and it's going to take you to the next space in the page. Click it. It should initiate the download there. And you can see I've downloaded this multiple times. And so I'm just going to open one of the instances that I downloaded before, and I'll just take you through the steps. As you can see, you are presented with this option here, which you can install the SQL Server Management Studio. Just go down, hit install. So you can see that the setup is complete. You can close that. Now you can go to SQL Server Management Studio in your Windows, and you can load that up. You can see here you have SQL Server Management Studio 20, and I'm just going to click into that. And now you're going to be presented with an important window. This is the name of your server. This is your server type, and your authentication is going to be just your Windows password. I wouldn't change any of that. You want to trust the server certificate, and then you're going to connect with this particular address as the name of your server. I'm going to hit connect. And what you're going to be presented with is the information here, which is on the side. And then you'll have databases. If you have not used this SQL Server from Microsoft before, you shouldn't have any of these databases. These are my databases that I created. We're going to create those from new now that we have all the software installed. So just to give you a quick run through, this is your server. You can see that there is a database here, and we can add different ones here. All we need to do is right click into the top and click New Database. And once you click that, you have the option to name your database. I'm just going to name this uh, products, product, because I already have one called products. So you can name this whatever you like, or product sales, whatever you feel comfortable with, as long as it's in this format. And you can leave everything default and just go to OK. And you can see that has populated into our list of database. And we can call that our product sales database, or whatever you decide to call yours. Now we have to think about, there are no information in this database. So if we click into the tree, we can see all this information here, which stores queries and tables and views. But if we click into tables, you can see that there's really no tables there. If we click into any of these, nothing is going to be there. Now, if I go into a database that I created before, which is the products database, you can see that there's tables here. And these are the three tables that we're going to be using to populate our database, which are the discount data, the product data, and the product sales. So let's go and look at the project file so we can get an understanding of how to get this data in here. So here is the project files. You can see we have some icons. We have our store logo, and here is our 3 data files. Now, these data files are in a CSV format, and all we need to do is import these into our database to populate a table. So let's go back to SQL Server Management Studio. I'm going to go back and highlight my product sales. And now that I'm highlighting that database, I'm just going to right click, and then you're going to navigate down to task, and then you're going to import a flat file. Flat file is going to be representative of that CSV file that we just saw, that was those 3 documents. Now that this window is there, we want to hit next, and then it asks for the location of the file. So now I'm going to navigate over and get that file, and you can see it's there. So let's start with the product data. And you can see that the location is there, the table name is be given, and the schema, which is just the DVO. You can leave all that default, hit next. Now you can see a list of information in our table as a preview. We have been given this rich data formatting. Sometimes this can be a problem because it will change the data types. But this data here seems pretty simple, so I'm going to leave it as is and hit next. And now you can see we are given the modified columns, and we can see all the columns names, the data types, and then whether we have nulls or a primary key. I think that's pretty good. Let's hit next and finish. And now you can see we have successfully loaded that data. Now, if we close this, and now we can refresh our data, and I click into that, voila, you have a new table in your database that you can now query. So let's continue and add the other files very quickly. So I'm going to right click. I'm going to go down to task. I'm going to go to import flat file. I'm going to go to next, get the location. I'm going to get discount data. And this is going to be where the discount is. We see the location, the table name, hit next. And now we can see all of our data. We have the discount amount, the discount band, and the month. So I'm just going to leave that is and allow the rich data to populate. And you can see it's all formatted there. And let's hit next and finished. Now we need to do our final one. We right click into product sales. We go to task, import flat file, and browse. Then what we want to do is get that product sales data. Go to next. Now for this one, I'm concerned about the date because you can see that 12/1 is the correct date there, but we can start it out with the month first. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of the use the rich data type, click next. And you can see that it might be some nulls there where there's no product that might be used. So I'm going to hit next and next again. And now we're good to go. I can close that. And if I refresh, we should have all 3 of those tables in our data. So next we're going to get into querying our data. Now that we have added all of the tables that we need, I can simply go and explore those tables. So we have our 3 tables here. Let's start with product data. And there are 2 ways you can explore these tables. You can right click and then you can select the first 1,000 rows, or you can go up. And once you're highlighted on that table, you want to go to new query. And this will allow you to select from that database. So because you want it to be active so you can select from it so you don't have to write the database over and over again. So I'm going to select from product data, and you can see the IntelliSense pops up, and we can take that table there, and let me make that product data. And now we can just execute it here, or you can press F5. And now we can see we have a table. We have the product ID, the product name, category, cost price, sale price, brand, and the description here. And we also have the image URL that we're going to use for our dashboard. So we can also just copy and paste that and look at another one of our tables because this is going to run sequentially. So let's look at product sales. So I'm just going to change this to sales, and then I'm going to run both of these. And now you can see both of those tables pop up. And then we have the date, the customer type, the country, product, discount band, and units sold. And we can already take a look at how these tables are connected by looking at the product ID here, which is on the product table in this table, and then the product ID here. So we know we can join those two tables on those particular column IDs. Now let's look at the final table that we have loaded, and that is the product discount. So where is it? We have discount data. So let's change this. And we can see the IntelliSense pops up. We run that. And you can see we can't see it, but if we scroll down, now we have the month, the discount band, and the discount amount. So we know we're going to need to join these tables together somehow. However, we see this is at a complete different aggregation. This is at a month aggregation. So we're going to have to join that to a different way here. So we can do that later. And we're also going to have to pull the month out of this date aggregation here. So those are our tables, and let's start developing our SQL query. Okay, so let's develop the SQL query that we're going to import into Power BI. So we can just get rid of these two tables and start with our product data table. Now we know from looking at the product table that the product ID and the product data table matches the product column and the product sales table. So let's join these two. I'm just going to use a basic join, and that's going to represent an inner join. So I am going to join the product sales table. And then now I want to alias these tables so it's just easier to write them. So this is going to be my A table. This is going to be my B table. You can call it whatever you want. And I want to say on A dot product ID equals B dot product. And if we run that, let's make a little space here. We run this. And now you can see we get all of those columns back. We want to be able to create a few a few columns by creating a revenue column, which is going to be the sales price times the quantity sold. So you can see we have sales price, and then over here we have the units sold. So let's create a revenue column. So let's say sales price, the sales price times, I think it's called sale price, not with an S, sale price times the units sold. And then I'm just going to encapsulate that here. And I'm going to call that our revenue. So as revenue to name the column. Then I'm going to create another column here, and I'm just going to copy that calculation, and then I'm going to put the cost price as total cost. And then simply running that, we can see there's no errors. We run that, and now we should have two new columns with the revenue and the total cost. So that's going to give us a lot of information to work with. And let's finally add two more columns just for the importance of connecting this table to our discount data table, which has a month. So let's use format to pull out the month from our date. So we want to pull out the month using the format function. So let's pass in the date, and then let's do MMM. Let's do capital MMM for month, and we can call this month, and let's just copy this, and let's create a year column just in case we need it. So I am going to run that, and call that as year. Make sure we have a comma there, and then all those red squigglies go away, which means you have a good query. So then you can see we have December and the year there. Now what we can do here is you can see that there are two product. There's a product here, and then there's a product in our A table, which are different. So it's generally good to add all the columns by name. And we know we have an A and B side. So I'm just going to quickly add those in. So I'm just going to bring my product from A, which gives us the product here. And then I'm just going to quickly bring in all the other columns. Okay, so that should be all we need from the A table. So the B table, let's get the date. Let's put a comma. We get the date. And let's pull this over so we can see those. So we definitely want the customer type. And we don't need to bring in the product ID. We want that discount band. Oh, and I got two descriptions. So let's just get rid of one of these. Um, we wrote it twice, so let's just get rid of it. And then let's run that again. So we're all good. Now let's turn this into a CTE. So a CTE is a common table expression. It'll allow us to select from this table multiple times. If we want to do some other joins instead of like continually writing joins. So now you can see I encapsulated that with and as. And then if I can select from the CTE, and let's just get rid of that. Looks like it's all good, no squigglies. And now we can select from that CTE. Now let's pull this down a little bit so we can see everything. And now let's develop the second part of the query. We want to join the discount data table to this. So I'm going to call this A, and I'm going to join discount data B on A dot, and then we want to join that on the discount band from the CTE equals B dot discount band. And remember that we also have the month, so we need to use and A dot month equals B dot month. And now if we run that, we get a table here with the discount band and the discount. Now we can create another column to get our discount revenue, which would be the discount applied to the revenue column that we created here. So let's go down and let's separate this out a little bit. And okay, so let's here the discount is an integer. So we need to make that a decimal. So the first thing we're going to do is take the discount and multiply that by 1.0. And let me just do the step by step so you understand. So now it goes from that whole number to a decimal. Now we want to divide it by 100, right? Because it's a discounted amount. So we run that, and now we should get a discounted amount. But that is the discount, but we want the discount revenue. So we will get the percentage left over for the revenue. So let's run this 1 minus. And that means here we get the 86%, which would be 14% minus 100, which was 86. And now we just need to apply that to our revenue. So let's encapsulate this and then multiply it by the revenue. And then we run that, and let's call that as discount revenue, and run that. And when we look at it, we get for a 0% discount, we're going to get the same revenue because nothing was subtracted. But when we get down here to the 14% here, we can see that has been applied to the revenue figure here of 4378. And then 14% would be the applied, and then the remainder is what we get for the revenue. So now we're ready to pipe this over into Power BI. Okay, so let's get an instance of Power BI open. This is a reference to what we had before. So let's now go ahead and create a new instance of Power BI. So I'm going to go to File, and I'm going to go to Blank Report. And now we'll have our blank report, and we can use this report as our reference. So now that you have your blank report open, you need to connect Power BI to your SQL Server. So you can see here, you can import data from a SQL Server directly from this area, or you can go up to Get Data, and you can also use the More and specify SQL Server here also. So just type in SQL, and then you can see SQL Server database. So let's connect just from this section here. And remember that we have a server in a database and a query that we're operating off. So let's go back over to SQL Server Management Studio and get your server name. So you can see your server name here, but if you right click and you go down to properties, you can easily just copy and paste here to get your server name. And remember, your database is you name this database, so you should have the name. So let's go back over. And we have our server name, which we copy and paste. We have product sales was the name I gave my database. Now, before you initiate that, we need to bring in our query, and we can do that with the advanced options here. So now that you have your advanced options, you can go back over. You can capture your query here, copy, and then paste that query into the SQL statement option here. If you don't do this, you're going to be bringing in all the tables without your query. So I'm going to hit OK. And now you can see that table that you created with your query is now there with all your new columns and information. So I am just going to load that. And then you'll be presented with this query here and all the columns that you need. We can play around with that information later when we're building our dashboard, but now we have connected Power BI to your database, so we are ready to design and build. Remember to give your notebook a name so you don't lose it, but now we're ready to move forward. Okay, let's begin by building the backbone of our dashboard. It's pretty simple. So we kind of want to have a transition to show the different parts of the dashboard. So first I'm going to get a shape. So I'm going to go to insert, then I'm going to get a shape. I'm going to get a rectangle, and then I am just going to pull that rectangle down. I would say about 40% of the page or a little bit more, so we can have this transition. And I'm going to just style this. So now that you've brought in this, we can change the colors. So you can go to style, and then I'm just going to change this to the dark blue here. And now we have the transition. Now on this side, we want to have our product selection and then a graph. So I'm going to get another shape, another rectangle, and I'm going to pull it up. And then I'm going to make that encapsulate this part of the dashboard. And I am just going to go to style again. So, and then I'm going to make that white. And then for this, as you can see, you can add a shadow to give it a little bit more definition. And then now we have that part. Now what I'm going to do is copy it again. And then I am going to now have two visuals here. So I'm going to pull this around and try to kind of make them slightly equal size. We can always play around with it later. There we go. And we probably need to make this one a little smaller than the other, but we can make things look differently later. So there we go. You can also now select all three of them because they're all the same shape. And you can definitely look at effects of things you want to add. So you can see we can add a shadow, which we did across all of them, but you can add that shadow more. And going to general, you can add a visual border. and maybe change it to something like to give it a little bit of more of a pop. And now you can see this is the way it looks. It has a little bit more, but that double shadow can sometimes make things look weird. So I'm just going to remove the double shadow and the visual border. I just want you to see how that's done. So now let's add our first visual, which is going to be our icon here. So all you need to do is go to Insert, and we can go to an image. Then it's going to be able to get to your logo. We bring that logo in, and it should be no background in white. And then we can pull that up. And now we have our logo in the corner. And that is going to be our overall way we're going to build the dashboard in these three different parts. So the first thing we want to be able to do is build your image slicer. So this is the important part of your dashboard. So what we want to do is go over to your data visualizations here, and you want to be able to click your card slicer here, which is the slicer new. And then you want to go down and you want to highlight the image URL, but you want to make sure when you highlight that image URL that you're able to go up to the column tools here and change this to image URL. Now it might already be there, but you need to make sure it's there as the type of visual that it will, or data format that it will have. Now that you have that, you can go over and you can click image URL, and you can see that that slicer populates in the way you want. Now we have the slicer, but as you see, it moves and the image stretches. We don't want that. We want all our images in one column, and we don't want it to stretch. So now you're going to go over to click the paintbrush, and you're going to go over to layout. And instead of columns, you're going to choose 6 for your columns, and rows, you're going to include 1. Now this will now be able to bring your image into one single row. And now that we have that, let's close that. We want to go to images. And then here, we want to click normal. So instead of fill, let's do normal first. And then you can see it gets smaller, but this looks a lot better. So now that you have that, you can pull that up into where you want it to be. We can close images first. Okay, and now let's go to general, go to effects. And then now what you want to do is here, you want to get rid of the background. And now that you have a background, you could leave your slicer in this way if you like. However, I'm going to change mine to the background behind the button to be a different fill. So then I go back to my visual, go to button, and then go to the fill. And now you can change that fill to what the background image is, like this. And when you hover over it, it will change to a different color like this. Now, if you want it to not be so bright, you can just pull the transparency around, but you can see that it lights up in any way that you like by changing how it works. So if you can see, let me go back down to fill, and I'm going to go transparency here to like 50. And now you can see it makes a slightly different look instead of that bright white. Now let's make sure the slicer is working. So now let's click off your slicer and let's get a cost price or something that we can bring in as a visual. There we go. And I'm going to turn that into a card just so we can see if it's filtering. So then I click one of the images and you can see it's indeed filtering the dashboard. So then next, we want to build a visual here. So here we go. We're creating the image again. So you want to go over to a card visual. So get the new card. And then I want to select product because that's going to be kind of our placeholder. Then we want to go over to the paintbrush. We want to go to images. You want to turn on the image here. And then we want to use image URL. Then you want to click into the conditional formatting. Then we're going to go over to first product. We're going to click down and then we are going to click in the image URL, click OK. And now you can see that pop up. Now I want to get rid of the callout value. So click into that, go to visual. Let's close this. Now go to callout value and just turn that off. Now you have this image. So let's close callout value, go to your general, and then turn off the header icon. Also visual again. And then when you go down, you want to turn off the label. So now we need to make sure this image kind of fits because you can see right now it doesn't. So let's go down to images. And I usually put this above so it kind of gets in a better format. And now for size, I'm going to put the size that I want. I'm just going to put 100. And you can see it's too small. So let's try 4. Too big. So let's try 250. And that looks okay. But we need to see how the other images are situated. And also you want to turn off the background. So let's close this image. Go to card, turn off the background and the border. And then we want to also go to general and turn off the background. So then we should be okay. Yes. So now you have this image that is rotating. Um, and we can see we can select from it, but it is quite large. So we're going to have to play around with the sizing to get the size that we want. But we can see that we can already select from this image and it looks pretty good. So now we can start to build out our other visuals. Okay, let's continue to build out this card. So we want to get a description. So you can get the new card. We can go to description, which is here. That's going to populate. Then go over to the paintbrush, go to callout values, change it to Arial or whatever font you like. I'm going to change mine to 11. And I am going to, now I want to wrap the text as you see here. So let's close this. Then go to general and I want to go to effects and remove the background. And then the description here, I want to also remove. So go to visual and go to callout values and go to label is off. So now you can pull this here and we all need to remove the background of the whole card, which we need to find in card. So let's change this. So go to visual, then we want to go to card, then go to background, and now it's gone. So you can put that there. It's up to you how you want your visual. I don't mind it not showing the description completely. So now let's build our bar. So we go over We get country, which it looks like we forgot to bring in. So let's go over to our query. So you're going to go up to the top and we want to go to transform. And that's going to bring you to your query editor. Hit source in your data. And we want to bring the country from the sales table. So that's going to be B. So I'm going to put it right under discount. And I'm going to write country. And then a comma. Go to OK. You should be good to go. Now close and apply. There you go. Country is now updated. So now I want to deselect. We also want to remove the border here. So let me quickly do that. General, effects, or that might be in card, but let's see. Yes, that's in card. So we want to go to visual, cards, border off. Now let's get your country. So go to country. And it's going to automatically pull that up, but I want a bar. So I'm going to now pull in the revenue. So we need to create the revenue. Oh, no, we have it here. So now we are going to change this into a bar and we can pull this in. And now let's style this bar very quickly. So let's go over to the paintbrush. I want to remove the X values. And I also want to remove the title. Then what I want to do is change the color. So go over to the paintbrush, which is here. We go to bars. Then I'm going to just choose the dark color here. Now we want to remove the Y label also. So just close this and close this. Y, and then let's remove the title. So now we have all the bars there. We want to work on now adding the values inside the graph. So then we're going to click. We're going to go over and we want to go to data labels, which we're going to click on. And now we want to start styling those. So we know that we want all of them there. The position, you want inside in. And then we go to detail on. Then we want to add detail, right? So let's add the country. And now you have the country in the amount. We go to layout. Let's do double line, multi-line. So now you have it on both lines. Now we can change the format. We can change that to something else that you like. Arial. Change the size. Well, let's change the size. And then now, let's go back over to value. Let's also change the size. So that means we don't need this label on our y-axis. It's going to give us much more space. So let's close everything. Close this. Go to y. And now we have our bar. We turn the y-axis over. Okay. And let's move this up a bit. And I want to take the values and I want them to be full numbers. So I'm going to click into that, go to data labels, and we go to value and display units. I'm going to pick thousands. Well, let's just pick none. And then I'm going to add a decimal place of 2. And then we also need to turn that revenue into a figure. That's a monetary figure. And now we have our graph that has the data that we want. So let's build our second bar graph. So all we're going to do is get the graph visual here. Then we're going to get date, and we're going to bring date in to our x-axis. We're going to bring revenue into our, well, before we bring revenue in, let's decompress this by clicking the arrow and just choosing date. Then we're going to get revenue, bring it into your y-axis. Then we'll be able to get our graph. You can remove the background if you like, just so it fits better. Now let's just stylize this. We want to bring in year for our legend. And let's pull this in. Then we want to go to your paintbrush. I want to remove the label for our y-axis in our x-axis. So we don't need the title. We also don't need the values. Now we can go to x-axis. We can remove the values here. Oh, sorry, just the title. And I think that's good enough. Remove the title. And then do you want to get 2 different colors here? So I want to stylize that, which we have the 2 colors, but I just want one color to be a little bit more distinctive. So we can go to effects. And remove the background just so we have a little bit more room. Close that, go to visual. Close your Y. Go to columns. And then you can see your series 21 and 23. 22, I want like a little bit gray. And I want to add a border around them so you can see it pops out a little bit more. And then I want to change 23 into our blue that we've been using. It's similar to what we have. And that looks good enough for our bar graph. Now let's quickly add the revenue by discount band, which should be quite easy. So we can get the discount band here. Just oops, and let's Control V. We want to create a pie chart for that. So I'm going to get this pie chart, the donut chart, and I'm going to get the discount band. And I am going to get the revenue. And now we can bring that in. Let's stylize this. Let's remove the legend. So let's click in. Legend is off. We want the labels to reflect what we want. So click data labels. Outside is fine. We would like the category and the percent total. Then let's change the colors a bit. And also let's remove the background. So we can go to general, effects, background off, just so we can have slightly more room. Now let's change the colors. So let's go to visual. Let's go to slices. And I'm going to just change these to something that reflects. So I'll change this one and then I'll change the orange to maybe that light gray. And then this one, I'll change to another blue and maybe like a lighter blue. And then it kind of reflects what's in the dashboard. I'll make these a little bit stronger. And let's pull this up slightly. Or we might have to pull it down. So there we go. I'm going to go to the labels. And the values, Segoy's okay. And I might make them bold. Yeah, so just they stand out a little bit. So now we have most of our visuals done. We need to bring in year over year profit. So let's build in the profit. So what you want to do is you can do this in DAX, but I'm going to do it directly into the data, which could be hard coded to the table. So I'm going to go to transform data. And once we're here, you want to go to add a column. And once you've added the column, you want to go to a custom column. And now we have our discounted revenue, which the discount is applied. And then I just want to subtract the total cost from that. So total cost. And then we can call this our profit. And then I'm just going to hit OK. And then this should populate here, as you see. So this is the profit from that amount. And then we can look as a gut check to look at the revenue, which was 2,985, and the total cost was 2,610. So we had a profit of 375. Now we can close this and apply. Now that gives us profit, and we can build in our table. So now let's get the matrix. And let's start with something like customer type. So customer type. And now let's put the year for our columns. And now we can use something like uh, revenue for our figure and the values. And then we can also use our new profit as what we want in that table. I'm going to get rid of the totals. So I'm going to go here and I'm going to get rid of the row totals and the column totals just so it looks a little bit cleaner. And then I'm going to bring that in here next to this. And then let's just bring that in. So we have a table. And you can see that it filters. I would like to put a divider here. So what we can do instead of having a divider is getting the products. And let's highlight the table. And I'm going to go to other things that we can add is like product under customer type. And then you can see as we open, we can look at adding a title. So go to general title on, and then I'm going to call this table breakdown. And let's just add a divider, which we can do by going to insert, taking a shape and just taking a stick. And we have the stick here. And then we go to rotation, change that to 90 degrees. As you can see, now we have this stick and we can put that here, right in the middle. And we don't need to call this revenue. We can just call this discount band. So let's change the title. We can go to the section here and just call this, what is it? Discount revenue. Nope. And let's now change the title here. So go to here and I'm going to change this to just discount band. breakdown. All right. Now we have a table breakdown and we have some visuals. Now we need to build in our year-on-year calculation now that we have profit. Okay, let's do our calculation. So let's do right click into your value, go to new, and then we're going to build this all in one. So I'm going to say profit year on year, and then we're going to do two calculations here. So I'm going to Alt and Enter to go down one. And what I want to do is add a variable. So a variable holds a value. So I'm going to say last year equals. So you can see that we have two, and I actually need to start it off with VAR. And then this is going to hold some information that I can use later, right? So I want to calculate the previous year revenue, so sum, and then I want previous year revenue or previous year profit. For this, we'll do profit. So let's do sum of profit from the previous year. So we calculate that, and then we need to get previous year. So let's use date add, and then we can use the date table that we created. So let's pull in dates. So from my date table, then we just need to do the number of intervals, which we're going backwards, right? So -1, and then we need to do a year backwards. So then we bring that. Now that doesn't complete our calculation. So let's press Alt Enter. Now we need to do year on year. So we have last year. So the calculation for year on year percentage is current, right? So we have our sum, but we want to return that, sorry. So return sum. And did I close this off? Oh, need to close that off. So there we go. We want to return the current sum of profit minus our last year, right? So you can see that variable is held. So that's your last year's profit. And I want to divide that by, oh, sum of profit, sorry. Let's close that off. I want to divide that by, there we go. I want to divide that by last year, but ensure that this works. So that would be year on year profit. I want to encapsulate this. So let's go over this. It's just profit year on year. We calculated last year's profit as a variable. We returned what we want to get back. So we want the sum of the profit. So the difference between this year and last year divided by last year. Then we bring that in. Boom. Now let's bring that calculation in to a new format. But one more thing before we do that, I'm going to copy this and I'm going to create a new measure. And I'm going to call this unit sold year on year because I believe that's what was asked. So now instead of last year, I'm just going to change this to unit sold and change this to unit sold and change this to unit sold year on year and get rid of one of these. And now we have two measures that we can use in our calculation. Now let's just get our new card here, which is going to be here. And now let's take profit. Oh, and one thing an issue You can see that if you look at profit here, it doesn't have the summation here. So that means it's not working. We need to go and change the format. So just go over, highlight it, and go over to transform data. So I'm going to go to home, transform data. And now I'm going to go over to my profit table here. And then I'm going to change this to a whole number. Then I'm just going to close and apply. And we can see that works. So now we have profit year on year. This needs to be a percentage. And we can see that 34% there. Now we can also add units sold year on year to this. And we can turn that into a percentage. All right. And let's just make sure that is no decimal places. And now we have a visual that we can start working on. Okay, so let's start adding our images and stylizing this. So now that we have this card, let's go over, click on the paintbrush, and then we have callout values. And now we can add images to that. Now we need to add these images by from our drive. So I'm going to click on, and I'm not going to click all. I'm going to get profit year on year, and then I'm going to go to browse. And then I'm just going to bring in the profit here, this icon, and you can see how it's brought in. Now I'm going to go and get another one, which is for our units sold year on year. So I'm going to go to browse, and I'm going to get the icon that I want, which is here. And now I have these two icons, and I just need to stylize this. So let's go to general. Let's remove the background uh, in the back. Let's also go to the back to the visual part, and let's put the image where we want it to be. So values, we definitely want to be much smaller, and then we want those to be Arial. And I'm going to make those into maybe 20. And now let's go back to the image here. And I want the image to be on the left side of this. So let's do left. And now let's also do the size of the image. So let's do 10. See what that looks like. Oh, and let's do that for all. So let's go back up and let's do all. And I want that to be at the left. And then I want the size of the image to be 10. So there we go. We start with 10. Let's go to 100. And it doesn't look like the other one is going to 100 for some reason. Did I not click it on? Oh, it looks like it's so units sold. Let's make that one 100. Oh, sorry, space between images, wrong one. So now we can do 100 here. And that looks okay. Now, probably a little bit too big. So let's see if we can now click back on to all. And now let's bring this down to 80. And now let's remove the card background. So let's start closing some of these. We can always come back and fix these. Okay, go to card. Then background is gone. And you can see that there's not a lot of room there. And we also need to change the value to a color that we like. Let's change it to, I'm going to change it to this color. And then I'm going to move it here. Let's change this. Let me close some things so we get organized. All right. All right, there we go. And we can see that we are not going to have a lot of room there. So I'm going to have to play around to get this in the right format. I also want to remove the the space here that is for the border. So the values, oh, I think the value size is fine. It's the images we need to worry about. So let's take the images, image, and go back down. I'm going to change that down to 50, 40 maybe. No, too small. So it's one image. So 70. Yep. And let's go to the other image, 70. Change that to 70. A bit better. And now let's also change the labels on the value. So labels, I want those to be white. And you can see we have some space. So I'm going to move this over. We can always play around with size later. Just want to get everything correct. And let's move this over. And maybe to get a little bit more space, I'm going to change the name here in title. Oh, sorry, labels. There we go. And it's going to be very tight. So let's just pull it together and see if we still have enough room to interact. And the thing is, we don't want this to be selected on infinity, see? So what we want to do is go over and add a filter. So we're going to go to filter. We're going to get a date table. Let's pull year into this visual. So you can see we can pull a filter into this visual. And then I'm going to say the filter is going to be is 2023. And then if I hit apply filter, oh, sorry. Oh, well, we don't need to do that. Let's do it another way. Let's just go to format, go to edit interactions. And if I highlight this selector, I can go over and remove the filters there. Now I can go back and I can say year equals 2023. But not less than. I want equal. And now you can see we have our percentage, but we also need to add that back. So just very quickly, go to profit and ensure that's a percentage. Oh, year over year profit. Sorry. Um, we don't need this as a percentage. We need this as a whole number. We need year over year as a percentage. And I'm going to now make sure this is 0 decimal places. Profit year on year. Okay. So now we are having our profit year on year. Let's turn off edit interactions. And Now we have this, and we want to make sure that this doesn't change that, and it doesn't. So now we are mostly done. Before we do our final cleanup of the dashboard, let's now um, build our tooltip page. So we're going to create another page here. And now that we have a new page, I'm going to just call this tooltip. So just double click and write tooltip. Now I'm going to go over to the paintbrush and I'm going to go to canvas settings. I'm going to go to type and then I'm going to go to tooltip. And this is going to make the tooltip. Now it's up to you if you want to keep it square or you want to make it in a different format. I'm going to leave it as is. I'm going to close this. Then I'm going to go to canvas background. I'm going to change it to black and should be able to move the transparency down to get it down to what we want. There we go. And now I want to add some information to this tooltip. So the first thing I want to do is add a card. And you can see that card pops up. And I am going to add the sale price. And I don't want this one. You could just get the max or the average. It's not going to matter because it's going to be filtered. So we can see it's 229. I'm going to remove the background with general effects and background. Then I'm going to change the call out value by going to call out value. And I'm going to change this to Arial. And I don't think I'll change it to 20. And I'll change this to white. And probably it's still a bit big. So let's go 18. And let's work on our heading. So the label, visual, call out category label. We want to make that a bit smaller and make that white also. Um, and I want to turn sales price into a currency just by clicking it and going up to format. And now we have 229. I'm going to make this a bit smaller and change the name instead of max. We just want it to be called the sales price. So click into the build a visual part here and just click, double click, and just bring in sale price. Now I'm going to double click and copy paste this. And I am going to also put another value here and I'm going to bring in the cost price. So cost price, there we go. Pull it over sales. You can get the max, change the name to cost price. Then we just want to turn this into a currency. So you go over, you click on that value, you go to that column tools, and then you just click in the currency. Next, I want a heading. So I'm just going to click this card, and I'm just going to pull in the product. I'm going to do the same things, remove the background, turn it into Arial. I think I'll Arial black this one, make it much smaller, 20. Uh, maybe 18 is also good for this. We make it white, and I'm going to remove the background. So close this, go to General, Effects, Background gone, and then I also would like to remove any of the product name. So I'm going to go back over to this visual. Then I'm going to go to call out value, close this, and remove the label. Then I'm going to just put this here. Might be good to change that into slightly different color. Um, but we can deal with that later. Let's get all the pieces together. The next thing I want to do is bring in my colorful table. So I'm going to go get a table. That's going to pop in, and I want to bring in the customer type. And I think I just want the number of customers, so I can just count because it's a line item. So I can bring it down here, and I can just do count, and then I can show value as percent of grand total. Bring this in, and now we can say percentage for the name by double clicking it. I'm going to make this a little bit different. So style, I want none. And then I'm going to remove the totals. So totals, I'm going to get rid of those. And I'm going to get rid of the background. So go into general effects, get rid of the background. Now, obviously, we want those values to be white. So go back to visual values, and then I'm going to use white for the first band, and then for the next band, I'm going to choose white also. And we definitely need to make this slightly smaller. The heading slightly smaller. You can turn the grid off if you want. And now we can get the column headers. Gonna make those smaller and make those white. And then what I want to do is just make sure this all fits. And we probably need to bring it down because of the name. So let's put that here. Of course, you could add more information there if you like. And we probably need to bring this out like this and bring this over, bring this over. Now we can always stylize that later, but now I want to add some color into it. So I'm going to click into this, and then I'm going to go to cell elements in the paintbrush, and then I'm going to go to background color, and then I am going to put the here. I want to do a gradient, and then I'm going to put count of customer type. And then you can choose what you want in terms of your multicolor there. And maybe I'll make this one green. Or I'll leave it as it is and hit OK. Oh, that doesn't look good. So I am going to go back and I am going to change this color to black and hit OK. And now it'll highlight the customer that has the highest. You can also change this if you want, but just to have a tooltip. So now we have a tooltip that has extra information there, which is a cost price. Now we go back over to our main page and we want to add the tooltip here. So all we need to do is click this and go here, and we can go to this particular area. Then this will only allow you to add information that pops up in a regular tooltip, but we need the menu to pop up. So in this, you need to click into this, then you need to click into the paintbrush, then go to general, then go to tooltip, and now you're going to click on, then you're going to go down, and then now we can change the page that we want. So we're going to use this tooltip page, as you see, tooltip. Then we go over, and now we have that particular dynamic that we were looking for. Okay, so then we're just going to do some cleanup on this dashboard, and we have about everything that we need for us to be pretty much finished. So you can see we need to clean the dashboard and make it look a little bit better. I want to definitely make this smaller and remove the borders. So I'm going to go over. I'm going to go to Visual Card, and I'm going to remove the borders. Then I am going to make my images smaller. I'm going to go with 60, even more maybe. Let's go with 50. And I'm going to do the same for the other one. So that's a bit smaller. I can pull those together and then have a little bit of a better look. So I still want to make this image smaller. So I'm going to go to Visual Images, go to First Product, and then I am going to make this maybe 150. And now bring this in over here and just make sure they all fit. And we can see this one doesn't fit, so we need to make it longer and maybe even smaller. So I'm going to go with my final size of 100 and just keep this small image here. Put it in a box. Looks like all of them fit. Okay. But then I want to clean up this, the way this looks. It does not look good. So I want to go to General, Visual, Shape, and then I am going to customize this shape. And I'm just going to pull the top corners over a little bit to 11, and then I'm going to pull the top left corner over to 11, and then I'm going to make it smaller like that. And then I can pull this over where it's pretty easily to interact with. Lastly, I want to make this a little bit cleaner. I want to mm, add the labels back. So I'm going to go back and then I am going to go to Visual, call out values, and let's see. I'm going to add my labels and then I'm going to make them white. So the labels I want to add are the first product. So let me get those. First, the product. There we go. And I want to make them white and much smaller and make these come out a little bit. So now we can kind of see these a little bit. And I want to add a title. Image URL. So I'm going to say select a product. And I want to make this maybe yellow, really light yellow. And also make this Arial and make it very small, just so they know. And then I'm going to slightly make it a little bit smaller and pull it a little bit in so it's flush with this. And now we kind of have a dashboard that looks very similar to what we started out with. I hope you had a good time learning about how to put this dashboard together. We have a tooltip, we have our table, and we have everything we need to kind of show off this project that allows us to have some visuals and a lot of different elements. Definitely, we can use some room to make this a lot better looking. I would like this to look a little bit better, but we are ready to go. And putting a title here. And what we end up with is the previous dashboard, which is here, which you can see this is much smaller. I decided to keep these all white and keep these depressed, and I made things just much smaller and I didn't filter this. So I think we have a pretty good dashboard that we put together. So please add any ones that you have, and thank you for participating and leave any questions and comments below and share.